Hello, everyone. Um, can you all hear me? For anyone who can unmute, I know not everybody can. I believe it's only the panelists who can unmute. So, for the panelists, can you hear me so that we
I
set the
can.
benchmark? Great, superb. I'll
Perfect.
take that. Right, super, super, super. Um, Thank you all so much for everyone who has joined on time. I know people are still streaming in, so um, we won't be African timers. We're already 7 minutes um, behind. So we'll just start, and anyone who joins afterwards will pick up the conversation from where they pick it up from, right? So my name is Ida. I'm the head of community and ecosystems for CC Hub, and it's a great, great pleasure to have you all here for our first Pan-African flagship event by CC Hub that's tagged female focus. As you can see, all the panelists are female. The main aim for this event is celebrate women that have made amazing strides and achievements in their industries and sectors, and also to inspire the next generation of women leaders and innovators. Um, so, some housekeeping rules before we start with the conversation. We have two hashtags going on depending on which country you're logging in from. You might be biased to use CCApp Nigeria, IHub, Namibia, Rwanda. It doesn't matter where you're coming from. Our hashtags are women in leadership and hashtag female focus. Please use the chat box as much as you can. As the conversation is going on, ask as many questions as you can. The moderator will be able to pick on what you asked and direct that question to the panelist that is able to answer. We'll also have a Q&A session where we'll be able to, you can raise your hand and we can unmute you so that you can ask the question to and direct it to the panelist that you'd want. Without further ado, I want to introduce Ojoma Ochai, who is our managing partner for CC Hub, and she's going to take over the conversation from here. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ida. Hello, everyone. As Ida has said, my name is Ojoma Ochai. I'm based in Lagos in Nigeria, and it's very good to be here this afternoon or evening or morning, actually, depending on where you're dialing in from. I'm really honored to be moderating this session today. I like women, I like leadership, and so it's and I like innovation. So it's lots of things that I like coming together in a conversation. I've got a really distinguished panel with me this afternoon/evening. I'll let them introduce themselves briefly. I've got with me Ibukun Beecroft. She's a partner in risk advisory with Deloitte. Ibukun, would you like to introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah, thank you, Ochai, and really, I'm grateful for this opportunity to be part of this conversation today. My name is Ibukun Beecroft. I'm a partner in Deloitte. I lead our accounting and internal controls / regulatory business. I've been in Deloitte for about 18 years now. I started my career here at Deloitte. I studied banking and finance. I'm a chartered accountant. I'm also a chartered banker, and I have my MBA from Warwick University.
Thank you so much, Ibukun. I'd also like to invite Patricia Okelo to also introduce herself.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for having me on this call. My name is Patricia Okelo, based in Nairobi, Kenya. I am an entrepreneur, have been in business 23 years now. Excited and really passionate about female entrepreneurship on the continent and the leadership roles that women are able to take once they run their own businesses. And through this passion, I founded Kayana Create, where I'm taking the call from. And this is a community of female entrepreneurs that come together to support each other in a very female-centric way. And I'm excited, to be here and to share my non-conventional path to supporting female entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Looking forward to hearing more about that non-conventional path. We've also got Sonja here. Sonja, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Sonja Coetzer, and I've been working in my career for the past 33 years in Namibia and SADC. I started as a cardixing clerk in 1991 at the age of 17 with no formal tertiary education. During these 33 years, I met great mentors, managers and leaders that taught me I am my own enabler. As such, I set various career goals and work towards each of them with intentional focus, from cardexing to pharmacy floor sales, to personal assistant and secretary, and a rather successful sales career in technology, to where I find myself today, the managing director and shareholder of Salt Essential Technology. 5 years and counting. My "it can be done and it will be done" attitude has brought me here. And of course, I was supported by beautiful women in leadership.
Thank you very much, Sonja. Looking forward to the conversation. We've got a fourth panelist who unfortunately hasn't joined us yet. If they do in the course of the conversation, I will introduce them. But I'll set some context for this conversation that we're about to have by sharing a bit of information. By the way, I see that we've got about 35 people on the call. I think it's possible for you to applaud or laugh or, for the attendees if you use the reaction button. I think so. So it'll be good if we get an occasional, thumbs up, thumbs down if you must, just to know, just so we know that you're still there. Right. So for those on the call, feel free to chat to us or put something in the chat. Tell us where you're dialing in from, so that we're not just talking to a Zoom screen. Cool. Right. So a bit about CC Hub before we jump into the conversation. Some of you have come across CC Hub before. We like to call ourselves a Pan-African Innovation Center that are dedicated to accelerating the application of social capital and technology for economic prosperity in Africa. Essentially, what that means is that we leverage innovation, we leverage technology, we create communities and ecosystems of entrepreneurs, technologists, and different kinds of professionals to solve problems and capitalize on opportunities on this beautiful continent of ours. We provide a collaborative environment for these businesses to thrive. We work in a range of sectors, including education, public health, agriculture, clean tech, creative economy, and various other sectors. Essentially, it's all about entrepreneurship in these sectors and leveraging technology and innovation in these sectors to build business and build prosperity in Africa for Africans. And as Ida said at the top of the call, women are a key part of these ecosystems in which we work. And women have a unique perspective, I think, I'm biased, sue me, as it relates to innovation on our continent. And if you're like me, the starting point for any conversation, I really like to look at hard numbers and data and insights and evidence. And so as I was preparing for this conversation, I was looking at a number of stats, and I'll share a few of them with you. The ILO in 2022 spotlighted a number of regions where you're most likely to report to a female boss. And it was quite shocking. Does anybody want to guess what the top country was on the chat? The country where you're most likely to have a female boss? Anyone from the chat? So if you look at the top 10 or so, Flor, thank you. Flor says Rwanda, William says Nigeria, Christine says Tanzania, Tolu Alashe says USA. I can tell you, Tolu Alashe, that you are wrong. Somebody said Norway, you two are wrong. I'll tell you what the top 5, the top ones were. The number 1 country in the world where you're most likely to have a female boss is Togo. The number 2 country in the world where you're most likely to have a female boss is Nigeria. Number 3 is Laos, not to be confused with Lagos. Burkina Faso was 4th or so. Cote d'Ivoire was 6th. And so you found that in the top 10, there were loads of African countries where you're likely to have a female boss. So everybody that put an African country very close. Flo, who put Rwanda. Rwanda, in another report, was the country with the most parliamentarians in the world. And in that top 10, looking at parliamentarians, now moving to politics, we had 3 African countries or so in the top 10. We had Namibia, you would be proud, Sonja. We also had South Africa, and then I think Senegal was 11th. And then when you move to entrepreneurship, which is the sector a lot of us are working in and interested in, Africa has the highest number of female entrepreneurs in the world, with about a quarter of businesses on the continent started by women. And if you move into venture, innovation ventures, about 20% of founders are women compared to something like 14% in Europe. Now, with all of these stats, we also find that despite women being a quarter of entrepreneurs or 20% of innovation-led businesses, only 7% of investment goes to women funders, right? So all of these hard data is the context in which you all are working. When we layer this on top of the fact that we know that women in Africa do a lot of unpaid work, I think it's something like 70% of women do majority of their work is unpaid work, usually in the home. And then you also think about the fact that things like property rights in Africa do not favor women. It's really difficult for a woman to own land in many countries in Africa. These stats, to me, are confusing because on one hand, how can we have, the most women entrepreneurs, but on the other hand, the lowest funding for women? Or how can we have the most women bosses, but a lot of the injustices and the barriers to accessing finance, accessing property, and so on are meted out to women? So I'd be really interested from that perspective to hear from our panelists to help us make sense of some of this, what it sounds like contradicting data, to tell us in your leadership journey, how has the landscape for women in leadership changed? How has it evolved in your perspective? And bearing in mind where you've got to, what do you associate with these changes? Perhaps, Patricia, you can start us off on that question.
Thank you so much for the stats. Actually, when I was doing my research, I just realized I don't have any numbers, but whoa, thank you for that. Yeah. So certainly there is a huge gap when it comes to funding. And also what I would specifically focus on is the size of the female-led businesses as well. So when I started Kayana in 2019, the background was as I've been running my own business for a couple of years, maybe 15 years. And I had just been doubling down as a female entrepreneur, as we all do, with running our businesses, having, of course, our families and our spouses to look out for and to ensure that we're succeeding in all areas. So I really didn't have time, to socialize, so to speak. But worse still was what I discovered that I was missing out from meeting and speaking with peers and people like me was the ability to learn quickly and put things that have worked within my business to accelerate growth. So you find that female businesses remain extremely small simply because of a lot of the times the multiple roles that we are juggling. And at that time, things like, which we'll speak about a little bit, affirmative action, that's now become a big, huge thing when it comes to ESGs, etc. And seeing more female entrepreneurs. It was something that wasn't really happening in my space. I had just come out of university, just recently gotten married, and all my friends had gone into, the big 5 companies, in terms of like the Deloitte, etc., where their growth path is kind of defined, and they were able to lead a somewhat, successful life. While for me, when I started my business, I wasn't able to get that car, to quickly get that, all the perks that show outwardly success. So it was really, you just decide that, I'm just going to focus on what I'm doing and move at my own speed. But when we look at the numbers, then you can see how then VCs can become unattractive to these small and micro businesses, because by the time we're accelerating, getting them ready for funding, etc., there's so much work that needs to go into it. And a lot of that work is intangible, or the results then will take probably years to see the fruits of. And how many of these funders are in it for the long game? As in, when we're talking long game, you're talking 10, 15 years, yeah? Many people, and especially with technology, want to see accelerated growth. Everybody wants to be the person backing that proverbial unicorn. And I'm wondering if really, and maybe that's part of the conversation we'll have, if that is the trajectory for women-led businesses on the continent, given the multiple roles and the multiple challenges already our businesses face within the continent. So for me, that it is a real challenge. We are seeing more women in roles, especially in the corporate space, especially seeing more female-focused funding coming to market. The funds may be small, but if they're focused on very niche, entrepreneur, we may begin to see accelerated growth. And then I think the third thing for me would be storytelling. I think storytelling has really played a very important part. While many times when we were running our businesses, we were encouraged, for various reasons, which we thought we may not talk about today, to not speak out about the successes of our businesses. So you find female-led businesses keeping their businesses below the radar, and the radar can be including your companion at home, right? Below the radar, so keeping it small, making it look like that you're not really succeeding or being successful for so many reasons, including cultural reasons, which we can or may not go into. But keeping these businesses small, but seeing now more and more female entrepreneurs from the continent share their stories on global stages, on digitally, etc., makes it more encouraging for more women to now speak out. And I think the digital and social media have played a huge role in these stories being told.
Thank you very much for that, Patricia. Sonja, I'd like to hear your view on this as well. You've been an entrepreneur for 30 years plus now. How has the landscape changed in your experience?
Well, when I looked at the question, and I just remembered the words of Afro Shiming Chase. You know, it's not just how the landscape changed; it's where it started. Women leadership sprung from the nurturing laps of mothers with the innate characteristic to create successful futures for their children. Our natural instincts shaped the evolution of women leaders in Africa since the 17th century. And I think one of the leaders that used innovation available at that time was Anna Sinenga, the Queen of Ndongo, a state each of Rwanda. She understood what needed to be done for her people, and especially in an age where slave trading was a commercial activity not benefiting the people. And she became this formidable force to be reckoned with. And she ensured commercial stability for her citizens. With such inspiration, I know that as women, we have an important role to play in the three core dimensional well-being statuses, being wealth, health, and education. The landscape changes that has been happening through innovation, through leaders, through women standing up, and for women understanding that innovation in its simplest form is not only an industry game changer, it has life-changing benefits for the citizens of the world. And we have to keep on speaking about it. We have to speak on this important role. There's so many female leaders. I take our very own Mrs. Uhanja from one of the government state-owned enterprises that looks at bringing investors to Namibia, to Namibian entrepreneurs. The focus has to be top of mind that as a woman leader, we have to equally share that investment so that other young upcoming women leaders can lead through entrepreneurship, through innovation, through making constant change. We cannot stop speaking about the topic. We have to continue to contribute to an ever-changing landscape. And it's sad to say, I don't see enough of it. I've spent 14 years of my life traveling and working in Africa and focused on SADC. And it's not happening yet. With everything that we have in this time and day and age, in 2023, it's an endless topic, but we have to speak about it. We have to be concise about our message. And we have to come together to support each other. We have to stand together as one voice to be heard and to make sure that not just this generation, but generations to come will have brilliant female leaders, entrepreneurs, business owners, employers
Thank you so much for that, Sonja. You mentioned Mrs. Wanja at the, she's at the NIPDB, right? The Investment Promotion Board. I've met her. She's inspiring. As some people on the call may know, we just opened a hub in Namibia, and as part of developing the ecosystem for innovation on the continent. And the NIPDB is one of those institutions where you finish having a conversation and you're like, oh God, like, thank you that we're in a country where innovation means something, government commitment means something, and there's a woman in that institution that's leading that charge. So absolutely, what you just said, Sonja. You also talked about, Patricia, you talked about storytelling, and I think that's a really interesting point, which will help me segue nicely to my next question for Ibukun. And storytelling, I think, is nice because I really like this quote that well-behaved women seldom make history. And when you look at history and all of the women that we talk about, whether you're talking about Ada Lovelace, mathematician, programmer, or you're talking about Marie Curie, the physicist / chemist, or Rosa Parks, or Wangari Maathai, both activists, or you're talking about Flora Nwakpa, the novelist, or Maya Angelou, or whether you're even talking about Beyonce, right? All of those women are women that have just refused to conform to the norms and the expectations that society places on women. And so with that in mind, I'd be really interested to hear from you, Ibukun. What essential qualities and abilities do you think that women leaders need to thrive in the world of innovation and technology, and bearing in mind the context, the very real context that we've got in Africa?
All right, thank you very much. And I think I'll start with the word storytelling. And the truth is, if you do not tell your story, no other person will tell that story for you. And I think that is the number one skill that we women need to develop. We're so conformed to seeing ourselves as the second nature, the men first and then we. I think that mindset, there should be that shift in the paradigm in terms of how we see ourselves and how we tell our story. I think the African culture and norm has confined us to always sit at the back seat. But I think that has changed, and I'm seeing a lot of awareness and conversation. And thanks to CC Hub, who is also providing this platform for women to know that, yes, you need to tell your story. And that takes me to my next point around cultural sensitivity. Yes, as a woman, we also need to know what is important, what is the cultural setting in our environment. The cultural setting shouldn't place a barrier for us. Rather, we should take advantage of those settings to make the most of what we need or what we need to do. So, for example, now the nuances in our environment may not allow you to really raise your hand or show forth, but I think that is changing. So we need to start tapping into those platforms that will allow you to take advantage of the cultural setting or the cultural setting that we have. The other thing is we need to network. Networking is very key now for us to really get to know, because networking creates for you opportunity to identify the right partners and alliances. You know, it's easier for women to gather and just gist away. But when you have the right network of women who are saying that they want to make a change in their society, in their environment, you want to be in the right society, in the right environment, network with them and have conversations around investment, have conversation about building their solutions. And I think that's something that we women need to do beyond being the housewife or taking care of the family. We need to step out. The men get the support. We also need to get the right support at home so that we can focus and also do things that will position us as leaders in the society, because we are very smart, we are brilliant, we are naturally wired as women to do a lot of things at the same time. So we need to put that out there. The other thing is financial literacy. You know, one of the things that we need as women is We need to know how we can turn our finances around or even get access to financing to be able to make that change. Was it Sonja that spoke about access to funding? Because we do not understand the platform or organizations that will provide the right funding for us, we may not be able to know. But when you're financially literate as an entrepreneur, you're able to know what is the capital requirement or the minimum required that I need to get started, and where are the platforms or organizations that can get the right grants for me to get started. Once we are literate about where to get financial support, I think we will be able to scale as women. The other thing is around mentorship. As women, we want to be able to get the right mentors, because mentorship, you cannot take that out. We want to see, for example, now Sonja, she has a whole lot of life experience that she will be able to share considering how she's evolved to this level. We want to find the right mentors. Good enough, we're having some of these platforms. I know there is Women in Business where they're able to create that platform for coaching, for learning, and you able to tell your story. So these are some of the things women need to also do. And you cannot rule out education. We're talking about artificial intelligence. We're talking about being tech savvy. We need to learn at our leisure time, create time to learn new things, get to do things beyond our comfort zone. And I think that will position us, and having the right alliances and partnerships. Those are things that can help us get started to start funding or even co-founding some of these tech innovations in Africa.
Thanks very much, Ibukun. I'd be really interested to hear from the people on the call as well. What sorts of qualities and abilities in you guys' experience, in you ladies' experience, do you think women leaders should have? While people are putting that in the chat, Sonja, I wonder if you can chime in on this as well. You've talked about Ms. Wanja in Namibia. You've got your own experience. What are those qualities and abilities that help a woman get ahead?
I think the first quality is believing in yourself, understanding that you are worthy. Not waiting on somebody else, claim your seat at the table. You are worthy. And once you understand that, I think, like Ibukun said, network with those who you aspire to become. There's so many beautiful platforms on LinkedIn that afford you the opportunity to connect with people who you aspire to become. And that's a quality, standing back and say, I'm not a know-it-all, but I know a lot of people that knows and that builds. So work towards that. Work towards yourself, your self-worth, your self-confidence. Take that step. Self-bravery. It's so important that you just believe in yourself. I cannot believe in you on your behalf. Once you believe in you, I can help you. I can open the doors. I can introduce you to the people. I can share with you. But it all starts with the me. I need to invest in me. And before I don't do that, others can't invest in me. Whether it's time, whether it's mentorship, whether it's advice, whether it's guidance, whether it's development, or whether it's financial funding. So I think those are the qualities that we need to start with those foundational qualities. And I know from a cultural point of view, sometimes it's very tough. And I've seen it in my own team where I have got beautiful young ladies that was held back because of cultural or traditional behavior or prescriptions, and they needed to break that. And once they realized that I can still respectfully be me as a Namibian, as a Oshivambu, as a Oshirero, as a Nama, irrespective of that. But I can be beautifully professional and I can be recognized for my contributions. And it starts with the self-investment. That's my contribution.
100%. Thank you, Sonja. And thank you, Flo. Flo has put in the chat that an essential quality is empathy, completely agree with you, Flo. I think empathy, though, is one of those double-edged swords where it can be both a strength and it can be used as a weapon against women when you're trying to be professional or doing the exact same thing, frankly, a man would do and is considered good leadership. You're considered a word that I cannot say on this Zoom call. So I completely agree that empathy is a strength. Flo, I just think about the other, when empathy goes too far and it undermines your capability as a leader and takes away from your ability to take difficult decisions. Resilience, Blessing says resilience. Thank you, Blessing. Absolutely. Sonja was talking about, and Ibukun actually talking about networking and mentoring. But lots of people that you ask will say no, right? And so you need to be able to take it on the chin and keep asking and not stopping. There's nothing that says the fact that you ask means you will receive. So absolutely. I see other comments. Njala says self-awareness, 100%. Ibukun has said risk-taking and adaptability. Faith has said ability to delegate, build a team, 100%. Janet says be smart and keep your eyes open. As we say in Nigeria, you have to shine your eyes, 100%. So I'll move on to the next question. Patricia, if you don't mind me bringing you in at this point, I'd be really interested to hear about the work that you've done. You talked about how your work, actually, I won't preempt you. So could you, Patricia, tell us a little bit about your work in innovation, a project that you've led that has excited you, and in the course of this work, remarkable women that have inspired you to do the work that you do.
Yeah, thank you. I think just before we segue into that, my big thing has been courage. And I think women leaders just need to be a lot more courageous. Yeah. Every time when you think you're stepping out and you're shining too much, just shining your eyes too much, just shine them a bit more, because I think we really, really hold ourselves back. I mean, yeah. But we just need to be more courageous and do not fear failure. I know our education system, especially here in Kenya, has discouraged failure. So just speaking a little bit about my own, as I shine my eyes, about my own journey. I think one of the things, when I look back and I think about the idea of founding Kayana, which is a community of female entrepreneurs, really came about from ignorance. Let me just put it that way. I didn't know much about this ecosystem. I didn't know anything for sure about startup ecosystem. The words VC were not in my vocabulary 4 years ago. So came in green and thought that I had, this completely innovative idea of just bringing female entrepreneurs. People will be signing up to become members, and man, I'll be the pioneer. And it's on all things. I think as entrepreneurs, one of the things that we know, even with the best laid plans, one of the things you have to be able to do is to become innovative. So I had already spoken a little bit about my journey being in a lonely space. Previously to that, in 2016, we had brought together a community of female entrepreneurs through an event that we hold called Circles for Women in Business, which grew exponentially. My ambition was to have 50 women in a room. We filled the room to the rafters, to the maximum that the room could take. And so through that, I started thinking that, okay, this loneliness, this journey is not a unique thing to you, Patricia. I think there's a real need for other women to come in and build this community, regardless of what we see around us in terms of networking spaces. Many of those spaces which I had neither been invited to, neither had I participated in for whatever reason. So when I sat back, probably around maybe 3-4 years into convening Circles for Women in Business, I was really, the core of what was really at the heart of what we were trying to do is to build resilient businesses, to build businesses that can grow, businesses that can move beyond ideation and being in this, woman's head and bring it to life. But more so, and especially when you deal with female entrepreneurs, the non-financial things that encourage female entrepreneurs is really about building community, peer-to-peer learning, even for an application for funding, etc., a woman will ask and want to be really supported in ensuring that the application is successful and is not turned down. So some of these intangible things are matrices might be difficult for people who are looking at targets, etc. So sat there and I thought to myself, look, I have this space that was coming up for one of my businesses, and instead of putting us there, why don't we dedicate the space to a space where this community and these women can come and convene? And that's how Kayana was really birthed. So it was birthed out of I think I would say sacrifice, because I could have used the space to do whatever, to enhance my businesses, etc. But just that calling and that commitment and that conviction that I had that we needed a space where we could meet as like-minded entrepreneurs, a place that we can call home, was extremely essential. The second thing is, for it to grow, it quickly became apparent because we opened our doors in 2019, and immediately a year later, Kenya shut down because of COVID, right? So, okay, we can go home and wipe our tears because of the level of investment we've done, etc. Or we can make this thing work, yeah? The beauty about it, I mean, before COVID, I didn't even know what Zoom was. But the beauty about it was people were in their homes. Our target audience, completely our niche, was sitting in their homes with no excuse to start their businesses. And so going online, making a lot of noise. But if you opened a social media page in 2020, you would have thought that this is a huge global organization. But we just made a lot of noise around the work that we're doing, and more women signed up. By the time Kenya was opening up again in 2021 and early 2022, we already had a large community and a large following of female focus and female entrepreneurs, but more so people who were trying out their ideas, trying out these latent ideas that they had. People who were beginning to feel as part of a larger community of entrepreneurs. And technology, as I said, really, really accelerated the growth of this, because even in our plan, we weren't going to open it up like that until maybe 5 years later. So for me, Kayana has been that project that started out of a dream, started out of conviction, you can say out of a really God-given vision, yeah. And seeing it just come to light and see the collaborations that have come, through that has really been birthed from that place. But even so now, as we are in 2023, some of the amazing collaborations, amazing people who've walked through the doors of this space, and the support that we have received, both monetary and through association, have been immense. I mean, we're seeing ourselves on this call, for example, simply because of some of the work that has been done. But just the support, the way in which the entrepreneurs within the network has embraced our vision, and then the co-creators around the system, the people who already existed, using us as a funnel to disseminate information to this core group of entrepreneurs has been really, truly amazing. And I think for me, this is the big thing, away from the accolades and the awards, it's just that satisfaction of birthing a product that I didn't second guess myself when I was thinking about it, and of course the stars aligning and me getting the support that we have in bringing it to fruition.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Patricia. There's a quote, I think it was Vince Lombardi, that said, "Leaders are not born, they are made, and they're made just like anything else through hard work." I'd be very interested, Sonja, what do you think? Do you agree with this quote? And also, for people on the call, are leaders born or made through hard work? I'd be interested to hear from you as well. But you first, Sonja.
Well, this statement has been the start of many a debate in leadership training sessions, because you have the have-nots saying that you need to be born with it, and you have the haves that says it's a skill that you can learn and develop if you open yourself up to it. So throughout my career, I've learned from my direct managers and leaders, as well as those that I admire online, what I wanted to be or not to be as a leader. And when I was 17 and I started out in this life, I was no leader. I was a pleb walking the streets looking for work, looking for employment. I didn't know what it meant to lead. I didn't know what it meant to manage a team. well, you don't manage people, you manage processes and you lead people, lead teams. But I didn't know that. You looked up and there was the traditional hierarchy, and the managing director or the CEO was obviously recognized as the leader of the company. It's still that debate. I think there must be something within the individual to develop those leadership skills over time. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting debate, but I believe leadership is something that if you're really interested in leading people while managing processes, you can learn, but you have to. I have seen where people got promoted from a general position to a managerial position, and they turned into the most horrible person. And then I've seen a person I never thought to be a leader that was given an opportunity, and wow, they just naturally inspired you. You wanted to follow them, you wanted to support them, you wanted them to look good in that role. I don't know. It's an interesting debate, and I think it's one that we can keep the audience busy with. And I see Patricia nodding her head. I love the debate around it.
That's probably a whole other webinar on whether leaders are born or made. I see that Njala is saying 1000%. I think Njala is agreeing with the idea that leaders are not born. Estohe is saying leaders are made through hard work. Adiola is saying leaders are made by people's situations and choices. So as I said, debate for another webinar, because I'm sure there are people on the call who are very quiet because nobody in the chat has said leaders are born. But I'm sure there are people on the call who think some leaders are born. But I'll move to you, Ibukun, again to talk about your own work and your own pioneering work in empowering women, in supporting women and supporting innovation in business and government across Africa. Tell us a little bit about that work and your own leadership in that area.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just to chip into the last point, I think it depends. Some leaders are naturally born, and we won't take that away. But the truth about it, there's nothing. Leadership can be learned, and that is a message to everyone in this room. You can learn leadership, and it comes through a lot of hard work. And we've spoken a lot about moving out of your comfort zone, and that's very important. So coming to my experience in how I've been able to lead in my space and also empowering women entrepreneurs. So for me, I'll start with my career here at Deloitte. I think for me, I've gone through the ranks. I started as an associate here in Deloitte in 2006, and I had people who inspired me on a daily basis to really go through the ranks. And with the position that I am now as being a partner, I've been a partner for 5 years plus. I think over the years I've seen that so people have paved the way for me. They have mentored me, they have guided me, and they have sponsored me. So for me now, what I am doing now is to pay it forward. And I think that is what each and every one of us needs to do to pay it forward. I'm in the private sector, and the only way I can also empower other women is to show them the path. The fact that I had it rough doesn't mean every other woman should have it rough. I need to be able to show them how to navigate it and get there faster, quicker than I did. And so for me, that is what I'm doing in my little space, not just for the women, but also for the men, because we don't want to leave out our men and have a dysfunctional society. So that's what I've been doing. On the other side, in terms of empowering entrepreneurs, I do volunteer because I believe we need to also pay back beyond my daily work where I've been paid. So I have a non-governmental organization, specifically my fellowship, my church, and also some other missions who believe in empowering women. And what I've done in my little space is to have some coaching sessions with women, and also providing access to fund very small entrepreneurs. So we have this empowerment program where we're able to gather women together for them to come and showcase their skills, and the people who come tops, they are being funded, and some of them are coached, they are taught financial literacy, they are taught how to really scale their business. We'll mentor them for like a year or so, and then they're doing well. A typical example of a very young lady who I was really inspired. She weaves baskets, and those baskets, she does it by herself. She started just out of passion, and she came to showcase her product. And before we knew it, she spoke about the orders, and she got people to support her. So what I've done in my latest space is to join those platforms and provide access to fund, coaching, training, and financial literacy to get them started so that they know how to manage the funds they have, how to get access to funds, and also how to scale their business. Currently, that community is running a skills acquisition program at the moment around small and medium entrepreneur, because we have a lot of women who want to do something but they don't have access. So we're able to sponsor these women to go and learn a life skill like baking, catering. Well, that may not be tailored to innovation or technology, but I can tell you, once they learn those life skills, they can bring in technology to help them scale. So in my little way, I believe we as leaders, we need to pay it forward. We need to make it show younger women the way, coach them to get there quicker and faster, let them navigate the path, and also tell them your stories and mistakes that you have made so that they don't make those mistakes again. And exactly what I'm doing, and I'm still looking forward to doing more, and that's why I was very excited to be part of this forum.
Thank you very much, Ibukun. Still on that topic of leadership, we've had more comments in the chat. Abraham says that leaders are born, but impactful leaders are made through hard work. Abraham has done a great job of putting the two schools of thought together in a forceful marriage. Christine says everyone is a leader because we need to lead our lives to our own individual definitions of success. So we are all born leaders. Luciana asked the question, are leaders made or do leaders make themselves? That's another angle, as we say. Sonja has talked about paying it forward, absolutely. Njala talks about it's possible to be born as a leader, but you need to be a good follower and listener in order to be a leader. Christine says leadership extends far beyond the confines of the boardroom and manifests itself in small, ordinary actions of individuals in everyday life. Absolutely, Christine. All great thoughts there. Thank you for sharing, everyone. We'll move now to just thinking about women in leadership in the innovation sector. There's so many factors that need to be in place. We've talked about mentoring, we've talked about opportunities, support, we've talked about what women themselves need to be doing. And so I'll turn the spotlight on government and policymakers for a second. And if you don't mind, Sonja, it'll be good to hear, you mentioned an example of a woman leader we know, but also working in an administration, in a government that has put in place different types of strategies to support the innovation ecosystem, to support entrepreneurship. It'll be very good to talk about Namibia and just give us a snapshot of what are the ways that the government in Namibia is supporting the innovation ecosystem. While Sonja is doing that, if you've got a question, do please put it in the chat because I'll start coming to questions in the chat shortly. But Sonja, over to you. Government in Namibia.
I think one of the first things that government in Namibia has done to really support innovation was with the appointment of Deputy Minister Ematu Phyllis. Again, in Namibia, she is the youngest female and the youngest Deputy Minister for our country. And she's the Deputy Minister of Information, Communication and Technology. And she travels all over Namibia, speaking to young Namibians, driving innovation, talking about technology, talking about how each young Namibian can achieve what they set themselves out to be. It might be challenging at times, funding might be tight at times, but there are so many opportunities. It's the taking of the first step. We've seen the great work of Dr. Professor Nisha Peters, first at the Namibia University of Science and Technology, then at the University of Namibia, and now at the Namibia Research, Science and Technology Institute, where she's making great strides, bringing the conversation of green hydrogen, innovation, entrepreneurship, development home, and making it a Namibian-owned discussion, not just somewhere on a UN boardroom table out there. We have so many beautiful, aspiring young women, older women, taking the lead, if not by bringing the investor together with the entrepreneur, but through knowledge, empowerment. We talk about the great work of our First Lady, Monica Gaengos, with her various foundations, Be Free, amongst others, investing in development in the young future, creating futures. So we have got so many beautiful stories that we can tell what is happening right here at home. And it is really for the youngster to take the step. You know, don't expect the opportunity to be handed to you. Attend the networks, go to the events. If there's an opportunity for a session like today, attend. It costs nothing, you know. The investment comes from so many different resources, sources. However, you have to stand up. You have to claim your seat at the table. You have to put in the work. Otherwise, all these efforts by these fantastic female leaders will be in vain.
Thank you so much, Sonja. I know that there are people from all kinds of countries, or all different countries around Africa and perhaps beyond. I'd be really interested to hear from people in the call. What government initiative have you seen that you thought, that makes a lot of sense as it relates to women in leadership, but also the innovation ecosystem more generally? Please put it in the chat so that we can inspire thinking for other countries, but also any policymakers on the call. So what government policies or initiatives have you seen? This might be a difficult exercise because I know that I've been in lots of this conversation and we always have these talks about government should, government needs to, government must. But that's not the question I'm asking. I'm asking, what is government already doing that you know about? Please put it in the chat so that we can all be inspired that it is possible for governments in Africa to support entrepreneurship and support innovation and support women in leadership. We're rounding down, just still on that government question. Dorcas is now in the call. Dorcas is based in Rwanda. I'd be really interested to hear from you, Dorcas, about government and how the government in Rwanda is nurturing an inclusive ecosystem for women in leadership, in innovation and tech. Dorcas, if you want to unmute and go for it.
Thank you. I guess I just joined in the right time because if there's any example of a government that's really doing a good job as far as gender equality and putting women, what we call, in their rightful place, it's really the government of Rwanda. So one of the few initiatives or the many that have been done over the years, and I think that's the first point I would like to make. I feel like this is something that takes a long time. It's kind of a visionary kind of approach, is that it's the first thing that was put in the agenda of the government from the get-go, was to say that if our population is almost 49-51% female-male ratio, there should be the same quota everywhere in all leadership positions. So there were imposed quotas at all levels of government to make sure that at every decision-making level, there is what we call gender equality or gender parity, like they have to be women on all decision-making levels and in government and the private sector. And again, once the government puts something like that and shows and leads by example, the private sector has to follow, which has been the case. And I'm sure some of you guys know that Rwanda is the country with the highest globally percentage of women in parliament. And this is not by accident. This is because there's been a lot of affirmative action that has been done at all levels, even in terms of innovation and technology. There has been, I think it's been almost like 10 plus years long agenda to promote girls in STEM, women in STEM. It started at the education level, and one of the ways that it was done was first to understand the challenge. So the numbers would speak for themselves. It was noticed that the more you go upper in education, like from primary to secondary school, you would start in primary school, there are almost the exact number of girls and boys, and then the ones that go to high school, now they get less girls. Now moving on to university, it gets worse and worse, and more specifically into the tech and STEM courses, it's even less. So there was a very specific emphasis on that, which started, I believe the last time I recall, some almost 20 years ago, where the pass mark for girls at primary level was made a little bit lower. And that was to ensure equity first, because they understood that the challenges is that the parents did not understand the need to send a girl child, and the moment that she doesn't pass, it's even more discouraging for them to even consider that. So that was more of an incentive to get more girls into high school. Same thing was done on O level, which is like middle of high school, and then at high school level going into university. There has been so many scholarship programs. There has been so many programs promoting girls in STEM, and those programs go all the way from high school all the way to university, all the way to entrepreneurship and access to finance. And so there's a part of, yes, policy, but there's also a part of financing it. You have to actually invest in equality. You have to invest in women, because the barriers that they face are not the same given the historical context and the cultural contexts. So you need to incentivize a little bit more, which the government has done a lot with all initiatives. And I think now it's more almost like a brand. When you say from Rwanda, people say, oh yeah, all the leaders, it's normal that they're women. And bias to have women leaders anytime there's an organization or in any sector in Rwanda. People feel more biased that a woman will do it more, because this has been something that was intentionally done, however. So I hope this helps.
Thank you very much, Dorcas. And just to the people in the call, we're still taking questions. We have maybe 10 minutes to go to end this conversation. So do put your questions in the chat. Fatiha has said one example of a public action is affirmative procurement for public contracts. Christine has mentioned that the Namibian government provides equipment and machinery to entrepreneurs. Sonja has said Namibia also has various programs managed by the Office of the President for Nigerian youth. So there are quite a number of initiatives which are all very interesting. There's one question from Esohe in the chat. I think we have that time. We have time for that question. There's another question which nobody has asked, but I know for sure, and I can bet money on it, there's somebody on the call that's thinking, women, what about the men? And so after we answer Esohe's question, Dorcas, you already started to answer that question about what about men by saying there's a historical imbalance that needs to be corrected, but I'd like us to come to that after we answer Esohe's question. So to Esohe's question, how does one tell her story if she's a multi-potentialite? I assume that word means if you do many things, but Esohe, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. So Sonja is asking, if I do not have my own startup and I have a job that I really love, how might I build my brand identity outside of my job at the company? Does anybody want to take a stab at that? Any of the panelists?
So I think the multi-potentialist, I'm going to take a stab at that one. Whether you're doing multiple things, there's always that one thing that is your true passion. Start by telling your true passion. Everything else will fall in place. It will find its story. It's find its spot in your story. You know, remember when you were taught literature, you have an opening and you have a building, then you have this explosion in the story, and it all comes together in the conclusion. Start your opening with your passion, because when people understand your passion, they will invest time to listen to the rest of your story.
Thank you very much, Sonja. I don't remember if it was Ibukun or Patricia that had said at the beginning of the call about storytelling and celebrating yourself. 100%. If you don't tell your story, if you don't document it, how are you using your LinkedIn? When we advise and support lots of entrepreneurs, I know you've said you're not an entrepreneur, you haven't got your own startup, I saw here. But if you say that you are working in education, for example, if I Google you, what do I find? If I don't find the thing that you say you're working on, then you're not telling the story that you want told. So it's really about how do you use the platforms that are available to you. Stephen says we're here to celebrate women, so it's fair not to talk about men. 3 Igbosas for you, Stephen. For those that don't know what Igbosa is, it's what is Igbosa? Please, people in Nigeria, can you put in the chat, what does Igbosa mean? I actually don't know what it is in English. It's a good thing though, I promise you.
Applauding.
Applaud. Thank you. Applauding. Patricia, I know you've heard this question a lot of times. I assume because you support women entrepreneurs, I'm sure people ask you what is your response to that? Because even though Stephen says let's talk about women, I know there's somebody in the chat that's thinking what they don't want to say. So over to you, Patricia.
So are we talking, which one are we talking about? Are we talking about pursuing our passion, or are we talking about the issue around men?
About men.
Women?
Let's talk about men.
Because if I had $1 for every time I was told about when do I start, what should I start, I would be, wow, yeah. But I love the advice that's been given. Just start. All of us, I assure you, and everybody on this call is doing multiple things. So it's a woman thing. We can have many balls in the air and succeed. So yes, so in Kayana, we are completely committed to the recognition that the playing field for female entrepreneurs is skewed. So we're not operating in a bubble and thinking that the referee and the rule book is a very rule book designed for men. I was reading an article the other day, and actually this article is one of the basis of the foundation of what we do in Kayana, which is The Ways Women Lead by Judy Rosner. I know it's been shared through a lot of networks and in a lot of business classes. And what is the unique thing in the way women lead, and why did it even become a thing? The first thing is it became a thing because it became apparent that the rule book was not written in business, was not written with women, on the playing field. So, and a lot of the times the decision making still lies primarily in the hands of our male counterparts. So without having champions and in especially strategic places that believe in female leadership, I love what we've talked about Rwanda, and that's a perfect example. If you have a male champion that is championing for women, the impact that can do to an entire country. And so men remain at such a critical role in defining these opportunities that are available for women leaders. And we see it in a lot of the workplaces where we have a lot of progressive leaders that are encouraging more and more women to rise into leadership and decision-making positions. And many of the women that I speak to who are in leadership positions cite a lot of sponsors being men because of the space and the places that they're going into. They need to be defended. So in this particular article that I'm quoting, the leadership styles are defined as what we could say transactional. And okay, so when they did the study, she just put these leadership styles and asked women to take and men to take. So men ticked what would be called transactional leadership styles, while women ticked transformational leadership styles. And in the transformational leadership styles, which is also known as interactive leadership, which is now being adopted in nearly all organizations, is really styles that where interpersonal skills become now the top point. Of course, hard work being embedded within the leadership style, especially because of the glass ceilings, provided glass ceilings that need to be cracked. The style in which women encourage participation, where power and information is shared and not held as a weapon against you. And of course, women love, and we've seen it on the call where everybody has spoken about the importance of bringing in self-worth into individuals that are within our teams and raising those kind of like giftings to the surface. And then, of course, getting others excited about work. So these are very soft emotional things, but these are the things that women greatly excel in. And in a season, of course, the article was written before COVID, but in a season where we saw COVID come into play, we can see how these skills became apparent and became a force of nature when it came to building teams remotely. You needed to understand the environment in which people were working in, and create new rules and new ways of doing, of working, and new ways in which we could benchmark, if people were working well or not. That was not only in terms of a transaction or just a checkbox. So as more and more women get into leadership positions through our male counterparts, we start to see a shift in how successes in terms of leadership styles happen within the work environment, but also within the political arena, etc. We are seeing, a lot more opportunities coming on board. We're seeing a lot more allies in many places where or traditionally we wouldn't have had our voices there. So having this allyship of male sponsored male heroes is extremely important in our journey towards getting parity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patricia. I cannot believe that we have run out of time. I'm gonna try and get us out of this call in 5 minutes, fingers crossed. I'd like us to now get some final words. If I may, Patricia, I'll take those as your last words for the webinar. You talked there about transformational leadership, and you talked there about interpersonal skills and how they're increasingly critical to good leadership, and how they're critical to the ecosystems in which we all work. I'll come to you now, Dorcas. Do you want to give us your final thoughts for people on the call? What should they prioritize, particularly as women in the innovation ecosystem and women in leadership?
My parting words would be there is a long way to go in terms of what we can achieve, but we've already seen there's so many people that paved the way. So if someone would want to take one thing from this, it would be if it's the general, very popular proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So make sure that with everything, with your goals, with your personal goals, with wherever you're trying to achieve and whatever you're trying to be and get as a person, don't go alone. Make sure that you have someone that you are dragging or taking with you on the journey. And as a woman, take as many women as you can, but any other person also. As a man, take as many women and as many people as you can. Just make sure that as you grow, someone else is growing with you. And I want to point this out. It's not about where you are in terms of what we see as a leader and manager, big titles, a lot of money. It's about what you can give. So you could be a student and take someone with you. You could be an intern and take someone with you. There is something that you know that someone else does not know. There's some place that you've been that someone else has not yet been to. So don't wait for the top of the mountain to feel like, now I want to uplift. Just as you go, whichever part of the journey you're at right now, take someone with you who has not yet arrived to where you are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dorcas. It takes a village, absolutely. Sonja, any parting words for this webinar?
Life is not fair. Life is not easy. It's not a breeze. Life is what you shape it to be. Life is a continuous investment in yourself, Your future is your responsibility. And remember to pay it forward.
100%. Nobody said it was easy. Thank you for that, Sonja. Ibukun?
So I'll say that you will not start setting goals tomorrow. You want to start now and start doing it because the time is now. And like my other panelists have said, as women, you have to be resilient. You need to lend your voice. If you don't lend your voice or tell your story, nobody will do that for you. So I want us to take that charge to start now. I'm also talking to myself. I want to start telling my story. We all do hide in our little area. So we want to go out there and tell our story and hold other women's hand. And also look for platforms that you can share your story. Look for platforms that you can support other women. And gradually you'll see that you're creating enabling environment, not just for yourself, but for other women. And as it is, there's nothing else, you cannot achieve anything without coming out of your comfort zone. So don't sit there, stretch yourself, and surely you'll be excited at how far you have gone when you do an evaluation of yourself.
Thank you so much, Ibukun. A massive thank you to our panel, Sonja, Ibukun, Dorcas, Patricia. I've been really inspired from everything that you've shared. Massive thank you to all of you who have dialed in for your questions, for your comments. Thank you to Esohe. Thank you to Stephen. Thank you to Flor, Christine, Fatia. I'm not going to mention everybody, bear with me, but thank you all so much for joining us. I'm going to hand you now over to Ida, my colleague, so she can close off the session. I see that my colleague William has dropped a link in the chat for you to give us feedback on our webinar today. So please, William, maybe if you repost it so it comes back to the top of the chat and maybe repost it a few times. So I'll hand you back over to Ida to close us off. Thank you, everyone. I look forward to a future conversation. Have a good evening.
Ojoma, before you go, I also want to hear your final thoughts. The last parting shot, you actually haven't given. You're also a panelist, so please give us your final parting shot.
A lot has been said already. It's not easy, and if I want to reiterate anything, it is that we talk about all the things you need to do, get mentors, work in a network, and all that stuff. It is not easy, and if you're prepared to do the hard work and put in the time and make sacrifices, frankly, there's no other way around it. Everybody who has worked hard has sacrificed something. If you're raising a family, there are times where you have to prioritize your work over your family. There's no other way to say it. If you are interested in leisure things, sometimes you have to sacrifice that to build a business or build a career. So if I had to say anything, it's not easy, but I think the onus is on all of us to make it just that bit easier for people that are in our orbits. And so if you're listening, if there's one way, it's already so difficult, it's already rigged against us. So if there's one way that you can make it just a tad easier for anybody, please always, always, always take the opportunity to do that. That would be my final word on this webinar. Thank you, Ida.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ojoma. That has been quite inspiring. Our panelists, this has been a stellar event. I do not take it for granted. My team does not take it for granted. CCF does not take it for granted that you took out your time to actually be part of this conversation. Our first Pan-African event, Female Focus. It's amazing to have all of you here. It's been great. It's been inspiring. So for me, I'll say a rising tide lifts all boats. And I'll speak that as CCF. We want to take everyone. We continue to build our community. We continue to include everyone. We run so many programs across the continent. Please join our network. Please be part of our community wherever you are. If you are in Namibia, in Nigeria, in Ghana, regardless of where we are building for Africa, we are building for the continent. I urge you to be part of our community, part of these conversations, part of our programs that continue to inspire the next generation. So I just want to say thank you so much to my team as well, who has made this possible. And again, to the panelists and Ojoma, who has been an amazing moderator. Thank you so much, everyone, and we look forward to connecting.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure and an honor. Ciao.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.